Welcome to Confessions of a Parent Coach. I'm Coach, a mother of four, and potty talker, Ann Kaplan. This is the podcast where I confess something from my own parenting and coaching life, teach a lesson around it, and answer your questions. Even we parenting experts are far from perfect, and the real magic happens when we get down with all that imperfection. We get into the gritty side of parenting here, so earbud up and dive in.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the podcast. I am excited to be here with you again today to talk about something that is coming up a lot. And I think I might have actually even talked about this on the podcast before this. Sometimes it just seems like there's like something in the air. And for whatever reason, like all week long, everybody I talk to, no matter if it's in my group program or private work or working with couples, like for some reason, the same topic keeps coming up over and over and over again. And whenever that happens, I'm like, okay, I think this is a really interesting topic that lots of people need to talk about and think about. And that was kind of the impetus for today's topic, which is your self concept and how it is actually the greatest parenting skill that you have. And I'm going to give you some examples to kind of illustrate what I mean by that. And of course, going to start us off with a confession. That's how I do, right? And my confession for you today is comes more from my like early motherhood experience. So, um, when my first and second kid were born, so maybe I was like in my first like 1 to 3 years of motherhood, um, I learned about Love and Logic, which is this parenting world of parenting skills that I actually now am a Love and Logic independent facilitator, although I don't really put myself out there that way because what I teach and what I expose my clients to covers a huge swath of modalities and information and skills and all of that stuff. But I do every once in a while weave some parenting skills in there that are from Love and Logic. And whenever I do, I make sure to point out this is a Love and Logic skill. You can find this on page whatever of the Parenting with Love and Logic book. But anyway, when I was really young in my motherhood, somebody told me about Love and Logic, and I was really interested in it. That was back in the day when you would get CDs, and I listened to the CDs and I was like, this seems to really make sense. And my oldest kid at that time was really young. He was my only kid at that time. I think he was like maybe 10 months old, maybe a little bit more than a year old. Um, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can even use these skills right now. It all just made so much sense to me. It clicked in my brain. And so I started to do the stuff that I had heard about in the CD, and it totally worked. And so from there, I was like, okay, this is it. This is how to be a good mom and figure out how to like discipline my kid without being like harsh and punitive or spanking him or losing my temper or whatever. So I was like super double down on Love and Logic. And anytime that I would find myself like losing my temper or just being frustrated or unsatisfied in parenting, or, my son would be like misbehaving or whatever, I would just once again double down on Love and Logic and really kind of when I look back on it now, I could say I was kind of like white knuckling it. Like I was forcing myself to do the stuff that I knew I was supposed to do to be a good parent. And I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to anything outside of that. It was just like, these are the ways to be a good mom, and I have to do them. And so if things aren't going well, it's because I didn't do the right stuff, and I need to make myself do the right stuff. And you might be listening to me right now and being like, "Uh-huh, that's me." And I will say that if you feel that way, you're super not alone, because most of the people who come to me, it's not in a news flash, most of the parenting skills that I teach them. It's not like, "Oh my gosh, I shouldn't yell at my kid." That is brand new information. Nobody feels that way. Everybody already knows what they're supposed to be doing. Just like me back in the day, I knew what I was supposed to be doing once I, you know, looked into it and got that information and it all made sense. I was like, okay, I know what I'm supposed to be doing. Just like you out there, dear listener, you know what you're supposed to be doing. And if you decide that you want to work with me, probably like half the stuff that I'm going to talk to you about, you're going to be like, oh, right, I already knew that. But what I was resistant to understanding is that the reason why I wasn't doing it all the time, or why I would get frustrated, or why I would still be grappling with misbehavior with my kid wasn't because I didn't know what to do. In fact, it wasn't even because I wasn't doing it, because I actually was doing it most of the time. It was because of something totally unrelated to my kid, or my parenting skills or anything like that. It was about me. And that is my confession for you, is that I, back in that time, was a very unhappy person. I struggled a ton with postpartum depression after my son was born. And that kind of like lingered with me for a long time. Something I know about myself now after having 4 children is that right around age 2 is when my emotional roller coaster peaks. So a lot of people experience like an extreme um, emotional landscape right after they have a baby. For me, I did experience intense emotions, of course, after my kid was born. I mean, just the sleep deprivation alone can make you experience extreme emotions. But for me, the most profound, like my rock bottom, like depth of despair was not when my kid was a baby. It's with every single kid right around age 2. So anyway, that is who I was at that time. And I would also say that I was a very angry person. And not to say that I don't experience anger now, or that I don't even maybe have an undercurrent of anger that's present inside of me, just like most people. But my predominant way of being at that time was either angry or very, very sad. And my husband several times suggested to me that maybe I might want to talk to a therapist. And what did I do when he said that to me? You crazy. I have every reason to feel the way that I feel. You you don't understand what it's like to be home with our kid all day long. And anytime that he would suggest that I like talk to a therapist, I would take it as an insult, that he was basically just telling me that, the way I was behaving was totally loco, and, I needed to like get professional help because I was so messed up. And that is a major confession for me, because could not be more polar opposite to that today at all. Like I, first of all, do have a therapist. Love my therapist. I will scream from the rooftops how amazing therapy is, and that it doesn't mean that you're crazy or that you are like so messed up that you need professional help at all. In fact, to me, anyone not seeing a therapist, I always think like, why would you deny yourself this like amazing experience of therapy? I love it. So the reason why this is my confession for you is because back in that time, my confession isn't just that I wouldn't go to therapy, but that I was totally oblivious to something that's honestly a foundational element of my practice today, which is my health, healing, well-being, happiness, satisfaction, fulfillment in life was the thing that was off kilter in my parenting. And that is what I want to tell you today. And I'm going to give you another example, not of me, not for my confession. This confession that um, because I was neglecting myself and not recognizing that I was a huge part to play in my parenting, was basically creating a really unpleasant and unfair childhood for my kid. Neglecting myself and just kind of forcing myself to do the right thing without ever taking care of myself to understand, why was it hard for me to do the right thing? Why sometimes did I not do the right thing? Why was it that even when I was doing the right thing, I still felt really angry and frustrated? I didn't choose to look at those things at all. And because of that, I was really not the best mom I could have been, certainly not the best or happiest human I could have been. And my kid's childhood wasn't the childhood that he could have had. And that is all entirely because of my refusal to actually look at my stuff and do my work. So, fast forward to like, I think 2 days ago, I had a session with a client. And you all might not know this, but here's a little spoiler alert. I have been running a dad's group program as a pilot program for the last month or so, and I'm going to be continuing that pilot program for a few more months. And if it is the success that I hope it will be, stay tuned in 2024 for a men's group offering. So you all know that I run a women's group, but you might not know that there's options coming down the pipeline for you to work with me in a group setting if you identify as a dad, not a mom. Obviously, dads can work with me all the time, including right now in private or couples work. I do that too. But I'm excited to launch this group program. But anyway, in the men's group, there was a dad who I checked in with him and he was sharing with the group about how things were going really, really well. And I asked him, like, okay, great. How have you been able to create that? What he specifically said was that he was able to be really a peaceful presence around his daughter. And I asked him, great. How were you able to do that? Like, tell everyone in the group, like, what's your secret? How are you able to be so peaceful around your daughter? And he immediately just went to like, I have no idea. Meanwhile, before he had told me, "Oh, and I'm able to do this peaceful stuff with my kid," he had just told me that he was like meditating more recently, that he was like taking care of himself in new ways, et cetera, et cetera. Interesting. Then I'm talking to a mom in my mom's group, and she also was saying like it's amazing, like our kid is like at 180 degrees, like it's working, this is happening, and you know, and I'm taking care of myself. I'm going to the gym more. I'm eating healthy more. I feel like I have more energy. I feel really proud of myself. And and then I said, "Awesome. How do you think you've been able to create it with your son that he's behaving so much better?" And she said, "I don't know. Maybe he just like grew out of his phase." No, you guys. First of all, if you hire me and then a few months into our work together, all of the sudden your child is behaving better and there's more peace in your family, that's not a coincidence. You did something to create that. And that's actually a whole nother topic that I want to talk about in a different podcast. This idea of like, how do we create this stuff and the importance of acknowledging that? But what also both of these parents had in common was the fact that they were taking care of themselves. And I want to focus in on the mom because she got really deep on this as we kept talking. So if you're wondering, like, oh, can you go deep in a group? Like, I don't know. I don't want to take up everybody else's time, or I might not get a chance to talk, or maybe I'll feel nervous to get vulnerable in a group setting. I want you to know that the second you join this group, you are going to be experiencing, first of all, like tremendous love and support from so many other people, a feeling of extreme safety in this community. And you get to take as much time as you need on your coaching calls. You might be the only person I coach on that call, and that's not a problem. It's beneficial for everybody to hear. And it's extremely beneficial for you to really give yourself permission to go deep and take your time and get curious and explore. And that's exactly what happened with this mom. So when I asked her, like, well, she was telling me, oh, I had been exercising and I had been eating well and I had been, getting outside more and I had been spending time with friends. And I was like, great. How did you feel when you were doing that? She's like, oh my gosh, I just felt like I could do anything. I felt like I was on top of the world. I felt like so confident and competent as a mom. And I felt so proud of myself. And then before I could ask her any other question, she immediately said, yeah, but now I'm not doing it anymore. And I'm just self sabotaging and I'm so pissed off at myself. And why the hell do I keep doing this to myself? And et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I asked her if she could see the connection between when she was taking care of herself and how she was parenting. And she was like, oh, yeah, because I have so much more patience. I have so much more patience with my son. She kept coming back to this word patience. But then once again, but now I'm not even doing any of those things anymore. And I know it's just a matter of time before I get short tempered with my son again. And what is the matter with me? I'm such a fuck up. Right. And we kept talking. And finally, she had this sort of realization that, like, oh, I was feeling good about myself. And that's when I am parenting so well. And then I sort of reflected to her, it's interesting that you're able to see the connection between taking care of yourself and having a really good self concept and your parenting. But I'm also hearing you try to get back to that place of having high self esteem by beating yourself up, by saying, I'm such a loser. Why did I fall off the wagon? Why am I not doing this stuff? Why do I self-sabotage? What the hell is the matter with me? What this mom started to realize as we were talking together, and you could just see the faces of all the other people on the call being like, oh, damn, oh my gosh. And the same thing happened on the men's call when I made this point. Your self concept, your self esteem is one of your most powerful parenting tools. Because how many times have you heard things like, and by the way, I hate this expression, but unfortunately, sometimes it is true. And it doesn't actually just have to be about mom, but what we often hear is when mom's happy, when mom's not happy, no one's happy. It doesn't have to be mom. It can just be like when one parent is unhappy, no one's happy. When you're not happy, you can't parent well. When you're feeling bad about yourself, when you're beating yourself up, when you're white knuckling it, but like I was back in my example, when you are white knuckling it and saying, just stop yelling, be better, use these tools that you heard about on Anne's podcast or whatever, you are beating yourself up. You have a very bad self concept. You're using negative self talk to try to motivate you. You're self flagellating. And no matter how much self flagellating you do, no matter how much you admonish yourself to not suck, you will only make yourself suck even harder. That's how negative self talk works. And this is why loving yourself, appreciating yourself, caring for yourself, having a high regard for yourself is profound. If it is true that when one parent's not happy, no one's happy, when mom's not happy, when dad's not happy, when whomever is not happy, no one's happy, think about it. The smartest thing we can do to make our families a happy, healthy, peaceful place is to make ourselves happy, to take care of ourselves, treat ourselves well, to think highly of ourselves, to truly love ourselves. Your self-esteem is the epicenter of your family's functioning. And you can deny that that's true or maybe pretend that's not true like I did. You can say, screw you, I don't need to see a therapist. All I need to do is follow what the book says better. That's what I did for about 3 years. And I think there's a ton of parents out there who've done that for decades as parents. I don't need help. There's nothing the matter with me. I just need to do what the book says better. Or I don't need to look at myself. I don't need to celebrate myself. I don't need to feel good about myself. I need to feel bad about myself because the worse I feel about myself, the more I will try harder to be better and not suck so bad. Guys, it's not going to work. You're not going to get good self-esteem and a happy life by beating yourself up. That's never going to happen. And the truth is, unfortunately, that expression is true. When the parent isn't happy, nobody's happy. You got to make yourself happy. And this mom in particular, we were having this conversation about like, how did you create this amazing outcome with your son? And I said to her just what I said to you just now in this podcast. It's not a coincidence that you hired me and you're doing this work and now your son is behaving better. That's not a coincidence. So you absolutely did create this. And she said, I don't really like to give myself credit. I don't like compliments. I feel really yucky with that kind of stuff. Bingo. You gotta love it. You gotta love yourself. You gotta celebrate it. You gotta recognize that you're doing a good job, even when it's not perfect. And really do what you need to do to make yourself happy. It's kind of crazy to think that like you going to the gym might be the thing that transforms your parenting, or you talking to a therapist, or you hiring a parent coach. Hello. These are the things that make a difference, and they can seem maybe peripheral or not related, but they are absolutely inextricably linked. The way you care about yourself, the way you see yourself, the way you think about yourself, the way you treat yourself is one of your biggest parenting skills. Your self-esteem is the epicenter of your family's functioning. I want you to tattoo that on your inside of your eyelids. So at night when you sleep, you're reading it. Your self-esteem is the epicenter of your family's functioning. When we know that, how can we not prioritize our self-esteem? How can we not prioritize doing the things we need to do to feel about ourselves the way we want to feel about ourselves. Because I know nobody out there really wants to feel shitty about themselves. Even if your ego thinks that you do want to feel shitty about yourself. That's a whole nother conversation about the ego right there. So if you're thinking this stuff is amazing, or, oh my gosh, okay, how do I work on my self-esteem? Hello. Or, how does self-esteem fit in with parent coaching? All of these things, I bet you are an ideal candidate for my work and probably for the group program, unless you're not a mom. And if you're thinking, I really want to work with you. So, I get to see the back end of my website. I get to see the statistics. I know what you people are doing out there. And I know how many of you have clicked on the group programming link in the last month. It's a lot. I encourage you to check it out again. First of all, just because I recently redid the landing page, but also this is so worth it. And a lot of people don't realize that it's actually super attainable. You're listening to someone on a podcast, or maybe you've taken a training of mine. Maybe you're one of the people on my email list. You can start to tell yourself that working with me must be super, super expensive, or working with me must be only for people who are really in extreme situations, or working with me is only for people who have tons of resources available for them. Not true at all. And my group program is a great example of that. Did you know that when you join my group program, you pay an enrollment fee, and then you never pay me again? And you are in the group for the lifetime of my business. And if you think about what that means that you are practically getting free parent coaching after a certain point. There's women who have been in that group with me for 3-4 years now. They paid me 4 years ago to join the group, and I've never taken another penny from them. And they still get weekly live coaching from me every single week that they want it. They still get immediate engagement from me in our community space, where you post a question and I get back to you within an hour or two. They still get access to the same amazing, beautiful parenting curriculum that walks you through both parenting skills and all of this emotional stuff that we're talking about. Your self-concept is woven into the work that I do with my clients, because it's fundamental, just like I'm saying on this podcast. So if you're telling yourself that you don't get to have this amazing stuff that I keep talking about, that's your self-esteem talking. You deserve it just as much as everybody else does. Parenting lasts a lifetime, so we all deserve support that lasts a lifetime too, which is why the program is designed the way it is. And the only thing stopping you from having what you need to parent the way that you want to is you. You're not letting yourself have the thing you want or need or really could benefit from. And you're holding yourself back because of that. So cut it out. This is your coach speaking. You're forbidden from denying yourself the things that would bring you closer to happiness, because when you are happy, the rest of your family can be happy too. I love you all so much. I hope you're having an amazing week. I hope this podcast continues to be super helpful for you. And if you have a question that you want answered on the podcast, send me an email, use the contact form on my website, or if you received information about this podcast in your email, just reply to that email and tell me what you want me to talk about on the podcast, and I will make it happen. Have a great week, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
The episode is over, but there's more waiting for you. You can grab my free workbook, Getting Kids to Listen the First Time, that walks you through the fundamental principles I teach all of my clients and applies them to this very universal parenting challenge. So if you're sick of repeating yourself all day long, or just want to learn more about my style, you'll definitely want to go to bit.ly/kidswholisten. And if you're ready to work with me, let's meet. Set up a free call at bit.ly/Kaplan call, and let's create an action plan that gets you exactly where you want to go. And of course, links to all this goodness are in the show notes. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.